All right, good afternoon. This is All Pro Team Talks, and we're here with the beautiful Tabi Barber.
Yay!
Oh, yeah. And Dwayne Hicks and myself, Chris Reynolds. And today we're going to talk a little bit about, and it's going to be a casual conversation, but we're kind of experiencing market change a little bit. Things are leveling out, but perspective on if you're a seller and a buyer, there's a different perception there because I'm starting to see our sellers are wanting top dollar. Maybe even, I wouldn't say...
maybe above top dollar.
They're outrageous, but there are some that are thinking, man, there is gold in those hills.
Yeah, they're thinking of last year's market.
Yes.
When it was crazy.
Right.
And the drunk market we talk about a lot. But this place is different now.
But you know, those same people, when we sell their house or we're going for cha-ching, when we go looking to help them buy, they're not wanting to spend any money.
Yeah, they want a low ball.
So let's talk a little bit about that and try to figure out, and Dwayne, I know, so kind of how the All Pro team works. We do a lot of the listings, and Tabi does a lot of the buying, and we do rotate and switch. We do everything together because we're pretty good by ourselves, but we're incredible together, right?
There you go.
And so it works out for us. But on the seller side, let's talk about that first. I mean, when you go into a place and people are just a little beyond reach on price, what does that conversation look like?
Well, we base our pricing on data, and a lot of times the sellers have put all this work into this home, and they're emotionally attached, and so sometimes you're working with emotion on one side and data on the other. And Mitt used to have this question. He'd always say, "How did you arrive at your number?"
Yeah,
and so good. I always arrive at my number with science or data, and but there's times, though, that you pay attention to the emotional side because they may point something out that's really important to the value that I might miss in the data.
Sure.
Because the data doesn't always, when you're looking at data online and comparable sales, it doesn't always tell you some things about the home.
Yeah,
little extras, little improvements that are made. It's sometimes based totally on square footage.
Yeah,
and other market signals and data. But it's really important to come in and having that conversation. And I try to listen carefully to what they're trying to get done. And if I really believe that we're way apart, then we're gonna say that. But if I feel like we're close enough that in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we're going to let the market speak.
Yeah.
And it does. Yeah. Sometimes with crickets or silence. No calls, no.
Been there, done that. Yeah.
And then we lower that. And we've had that happen the last 3 months, I bet, with several listings. We've had people that really wanted to go aggressive on the pricing, and the market kind of talked them down to the real number.
Yeah. Well, you kind of started there, and I think this is a good point. We're helping people transition from this is no longer your home, this is a house.
That's right.
And so you talk about we bring data to the table. Like how are we pulling those numbers? Because I think people ask me that the most. It's like, where did I get my number? And so what are some of the things that we take in consideration when we come in and price a house?
Well, mainly we work off of sold data. Like, what are some homes that are like yours?
Not 10 years ago.
No, and quite frankly, not even 12 months ago.
Right.
I mean, because that market was so different. 6 months, in some cases, we can reach back into the 12 months, but a lot of times we will try to do 6 months or less to try to see what's sold around it. And then we also, because we show buyers, we can look at that home as a buyer would look because we work with buyers. And that's where it's important I always tell sellers, you got to think like a buyer. And I always tell buyers, you got to think like a seller. Right. It'll make them better at what they're trying to do. It'll give them a little more empathy and understanding. And that's kind of what the point of this conversation is, because the sellers who want to strike gold on the sale of their house and then want to beat the snot out of somebody on the buying of their house.
It's a little hard.
It just doesn't work that way. And the same market that blessed them will turn around and bite them.
Well, and see, as a realtor, I'm thinking of a spot in my bathroom right now, that I just keep passing by. You know, I know it's there. I know it needs to be fixed. But a lot of times, you know, we kind of just become blind to that. It's always been there. And then when we're selling a house and somebody brings it up, you know, it's like, whoa, I mean, it's not that big of a deal because you lived with it for a while. So it's not, but honestly, if you want top dollar at the end of the day, then you got to produce that house in a tip-top shape.
That's right.
Put it out in front of the market. You can't look across the street at the better neighborhood or the worst to get numbers. You got to be able to be honest, and that's kind of what we do.
Yeah.
And it's very crazy when we get to the buying side. So we deal with the listing, and then we kind of are like, hey, Tabi, so we're going to sell their house. Or try, depending on the number that we arrive to. Because I don't know that we've ever turned anybody down when it comes to their number. We just, like Dwayne says, all right, the market's going to tell you, because some people say, gut feeling, it's the Lord, their neighbor told them, there's all these things. But when we get to the side where it's like, okay, now we're cruising, they're getting some looks at this house and they're going to buy, and they get to you and they say, I'm not spending that kind of money. Like, how do you kind of navigate, negotiate with buyers to help them realize what that house is truly worth? Is it the same as when we sell it? You pulling numbers? Tell me about that process.
I think it's the same. I run comps on that as well in that area. But I also try to tell them the reverse. I say, if you were selling your house, how would you feel about that? And you need to put yourself in that seller's shoes as well.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, we're basically telling both sides the same thing. Just think about the other. But do they do it?
Usually not.
Well, and it's great, too, because I want to say that every realtor prices based off of data and expertise. But you as a buying agent, it's smart to pull those numbers yourself, because they could have been in that conversation where they're like, this house is worth $520. You want to sell it for $560, we give it a shot. But as a buying agent, it's kind of your job to go, no, this house is worth $520.
Right.
And begin to have that conversation. And that's kind of the way we protect buyers and sellers work together, which is awesome.
Because there's an appraiser coming. Everybody knows there's an appraiser coming, which is a third-party opinion hired by the lender to defend that value in the marketplace. That's their role. And there was a time we felt like the appraiser said, what's the price they're looking for? Oh, yeah, we can get that, and they just appraise it for that. That's not how it works. They measure, and they have to be able to defend it. And last year's market was just crazy, though, because the sellers could say, I want $20,000 more. Well, let's try that for 2 weeks. And then we have multiple offers and bam, and get their number. And we're going, well, my data didn't catch up with that. And then the appraiser would somehow catch up with that. So I feel like that 2022 market was a little bit of an anomaly for sure. For sure. It was just like a run on the market kind of thing. And now everybody is sobered up and going, wait a second, I need some closing cost, or I don't want to pay more than it's worth. But the overall market kind of stabilized and is kind of holding. I feel like it's that we're not seeing markets just absolutely tanked. Some of them are settling down a little bit.
Sure.
But
it's almost went back to the price that it's actually worth.
Exactly.
So it was like, we didn't change the market's not dropping out. It's like, hey, that number we think it's worth that you were able to get $30,000, $40,000 more last year or the year before. Now we're back to what this house really is worth.
Yeah, and working with first-time home buyers too, and we try to think in terms of 5 years out. What's this house going to be worth? Because they're not going to stay here forever. Although I've sold a lot of people's forever home,
it's always
we're not moving again. Yeah,
I know. I was telling buyers in that market, I want you to really like this house for at least 5 years. You got to really like this house, because you're not going to get your money back on it for a little bit. And you got to hold on to it. And so some buyers just said, well, I'm going to wait. And some buyers just jumped. And
but the crazy thing is, guys, too, if the buyer didn't buy that house, they're going to pay ridiculous number in rent. Houses that should be worth $1,000 a month we're renting for $1,800, and we were sitting here going, our heads are spinning off. That's in our marketplace here. Can you imagine what it is in larger markets and more higher markets? But the thing is, if you take that money that they were going to spend in that rent over 3 or 4 year period, then there's a significant difference, and it starts making the numbers work that maybe they take a chance on this market and improve the house, and they will see value for sure.
And obviously we deal with property management, and renting is something that our company specializes in helping the tenant and the owner. But truth be told, if we're here to represent the tenant, I mean, you're just taking that money and you're putting it in somebody else's pocket.
That's right.
I mean, the investment there. Now there's a time that a lot of us, that's what we got to do for a moment, whether we're building our credit or, transitioning, maybe jobs, what have you. And so there's nothing wrong with that.
Season of life, yeah.
Yes, but I think it's seasonal. I think you got to look long term because we know your greatest investment is real estate. I mean, it's been proven over time, besides like gold, but I don't know about you guys. I live in the city of gold, but I haven't found any yet, and so we got to make sure that investment counts. And that's kind of our job to help coach and walk through that with people.
Yeah. And one of the things that we deal with too, with buyers and sellers, is they want what they want when they want it.
That's it.
And we are not going to rub some magic ball or can just snap our fingers and make things happen like that. We live in the real world. My mom used to have a saying that there are people in jail who want out, but they can't get out. So I think some people are in house jail.
To some of those people, I think.
Some people are in house jail. They paid way too much for their house, or they've either mortgaged it to the hilt, sucked all the equity out, and then they want to sell it for way more than it's worth. That's just not realistic.
Sure.
Or their numbers are just whacked out. And I don't know that we can help people who are unrealistic because the market is the data. The market speaks. Yeah. We interpret the market and we work in this market. But I think we have to help people understand how their wants and need. We need to help them get to their need.
Yeah.
We want to help their need more than I want to help their want.
So $1 million question is, you tell somebody a price, they don't like it. They kick you to the curb, and then you see it listed couple days down the road by somebody else at the price they wanted. Does that bother you?
It does sometimes because I'm just so darn relational.
Right.
I care about that relationship.
More than that number.
It's more than numbers because when I told them the number, I really meant that I researched it. I didn't just pull it out of the sky. And so I'm kind of stung a little bit that the relationship didn't mean a whole lot.
But you know what I'm noticing is that their trend is they list them whatever they want to list them, and then you see next week they're going down. The week after they're falling down. And I'm noticing that our buyers are more they're just more educated about it, and they're watching the market, and they're just saying it'll come down more, it'll come down more. So that's kind of an interesting.
Well, and the good part about, you mentioned our area in the West Georgia area, there's not, we're family even outside of our company, and so most of the time we're working together with other agents, co-ops, and things of that nature. And so we don't see it often, but I do know, and I've had that moment where it's like, that's not going to work, and they go and hire somebody else. And so I would just say, obviously, if you're in the market, you want to make sure you're interviewing people. Find out what the threshold is. I think being a relational realtor is extremely important, especially when you can be a professional. You do your due diligence to make sure you know about the market, and you can be relational to those people. That's priceless. You got to trust us a little bit, but I know it's hard because we've all been buyers and sellers as well. We just get the opportunity to help other people. So I will say this, just to kind of close it out. You brought up some things about mortgages. So we have another podcast out there that we interviewed PMG, and they kind of talked through some of that opportunity. We just got finished with Jason Templeton on insurance, and I'm thinking we need to try to get an appraiser in here.
Oh, yes.
That's a great idea.
We need to get an appraiser in here, but we want to just create content more than just in this room, but to give these people, our followers, an opportunity to hear the heart behind the number, I think is really the biggest conversation that needs to be had. And hey, we'll risk it for the biscuit as well, but ultimately, and we'll never come back and say, well, I told you so, but it does feel a little better when I'm like, oh, we're going with that price now? Okay, cool. But if there's anything that you want to hear us talk about or information that we can get out there to you guys as followers of the All-Pro team, let us know. Interact with us. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow us. We're on Facebook, Instagram. Obviously, YouTube is probably where they're catching most of this. But make sure you subscribe. Tell your friends about it. And we want to be a part of their story, right?
Absolutely.
Even if you're a little crazy and your price point may be unrealistic, we'll still sit down with you and show you maybe you're not that far off. Maybe, because I've had many of these conversations too, we could actually get you more. So, but hopefully we see you next time with some topics that you've chosen, and we're out.